Hey everybody, Jason here. Just want to put out this message before we get into the start of this episode. So when it came to recording this episode, usually I record either in the comfort of my own studio, aka my apartment, or I go on location to my guest's business or their studio or their home and record there. Very rarely do I do recording remotely, over the internet. So for this episode, that was the case. It was the second episode ever that I've done a recording remotely over the internet, and the first time using a new software that was not Zoom. So with that being said, just want to put this out there that it may be a little bit jarring because, I'm on this kind of studio mic and my guest was actually joining the podcast recording from their phone. So it's a little bit jarring. Also, when it comes to, the differences in the levels and also a little bit of the editing that had to be done. Not a lot because there's still so much value in this episode. So that's why I wanted to leave it as intact as possible. Also, another thing to note too is that this episode clocks in at under an hour. So if you've listened to the show before, usually I do interludes, things of that nature. That won't be the case for this episode. So once this little message is done, then we're gonna go right into it. So no interludes. And this was recorded remotely over the internet. So there is going to be some differences in audio quality than what you're used to if you listen to the show, or if you've never listened to the show and this is your first time. This episode does sound different than others because usually it's myself and the guest in the same room. However, that was not the case this time. So just wanted to be transparent, put that out there just in case you think your headphones or your podcasting platform or something is acting weird when it comes to the audio quality. It's not you, it's me. So just want to put that out there and be transparent. But otherwise, let's get into it. Enjoy. And this is the Creative Capital Show. I'm Jason Sylvia, and this is the Creative Capital Show. A show about creative people and how those creative people turn into entrepreneurs by taking their creativity and turning it into a business and facing all the trials and tribulations along the way. When you go out for a drink at the bar, what do you think about? If you're having a cocktail, do you think about the type of spirit in that cocktail? How about the grain that makes up that spirit? Where did that grain come from? Did it come from a family farm? What about the bottle that the spirit comes in? Do you think about the artwork and who designed it? Do you look around the bar and wonder about the setting and the design of the bar itself, the lighting, the seating? Do you wonder if that setting is elevating your tasting experience? Well, there are people who do think about such details. And one of those people is the CEO of the Industrious spirit company, Manya Rubinstein. In this episode, Manya talks about how every detail is considered when it comes to how Industrious makes their spirits. From a tip-to-tail production method, grain from family farms, their custom still, the design of their space, the tasting room, and their bottles, to their approach to collaboration and their impact on the neighborhood where their business resides. No detail is too big or too small to be considered and designed so that Industrious can give their customers the best tasting experience possible. Enjoy. So, Manya, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you coming on. And the CEO of Providence's first distillery since Prohibition, if I'm not mistaken, Industrious Spirit Company. So my first question would really be going into your background a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're an independent marketing consultancy, published Outpost Journal, Arts and Activism publication, which was at opening ceremony, RIP opening ceremony. And you've, let's see, you worked at Google, you've worked in marketing arena, and then you went to spirits. What was that? What made you want to do that transition? What was that transition like?
Sure. Well, I actually, as a young person, spent a very good amount of time in bars and restaurants. So it was not an entirely new environment for me. When I was in high school, I had jobs in the service industry, and then when I graduated from college, I bartended and managed a bar one night a week. So definitely something that I've been around, kind of on and off. So I've always loved spirits, and I've always loved what they can do in terms of bringing people together to enjoy something great. And so the way that I got into this project specifically was that you mentioned a marketing consultancy, and I'd taken a break from the marketing consultancy for a couple of years when my kids were small, and I was starting to get back into it, and I wanted to focus my new consulting business on companies in the food and ag space. I'd done a lot of volunteer work over the intervening years with food systems work. I'd sort of started to make this connection that growing things, which is something that I've always loved, and eating and drinking things, which is something I've also always loved, that these things were intimately connected to issues around climate change, to issues around justice, all kinds of things that I wanted to try to be more involved in, and have some positive impact on. And so, as I was trying to figure out how this new version of my consultancy might go, I started chatting with Dan Neff, who was a friend of mine that I had known for many, many years as part of the artist community in the Valley neighborhood of Providence. And Dan was at that time a welder at the Electric Boat Company and an artist who had a deep passion for fermentation. And Dan and I started working together. And Dan was going to be my first client in this business, and I was going to hand Dan over a finished plan for starting up Providence's first distillery. And what happened over the intervening months and years, because it did turn into years, was that we began working together on it. I sort of realized that it was too good of a project to pass up, and that indeed it actually encompassed all of these things that I was super interested in. Distilling is a beautiful extension of agriculture. You can pay a lot of attention to how you're sourcing and where the products from your process are going afterwards. It also has the community piece that excites me. There's the bringing people together aspect of producing something like spirits that I think is really important. And there was also the idea that we didn't have a distillery in Providence yet. And I had a little bit of city envy. I would go to other cities and see they had 5 craft distilleries and we had 0. So, there was something exciting about being able to be part of bringing craft spirits back to Providence.
So in this journey of bringing craft spirits back to Providence, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was 5 years from, I guess, the idea to the reality. What happened in the span of those 5 years? I know certain types of spirits, you have to age them and things like that. I don't think you have to do that with vodka and gin, if I'm not mistaken, unless you're purposefully trying to make like an aged spirit with vodka or gin. But what was the process in the 5 years? What were just some of the hurdles of getting started, especially if you could talk to yourself from 5 years ago?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I can tell. I mean, so we started kicking the idea around. It was like the fall of 2015. Then there were some regulatory changes that went into effect the year after that were extremely helpful to making a small business like ours possible. So, many of the laws on the books nationally that have to do with liquor legislation still haven't been updated since Prohibition. So bit by bit, as you see these laws get updated, you see craft distilleries start to spring up. So it wasn't an accident that Rhode Island didn't have that many distilleries at that point.
Not to interrupt your train of thought, but you spoke, I think, in support of a bill HR 5525, if I got the numbers right when it comes to distilleries.
I don't remember the numbers myself, but yes was definitely where we wanted to help that process happen for obvious reasons. We think that small distilleries are awesome things, and our state should have lots of them. We were sort of sidelines involved a little bit in some of that. I will say, like, I just want to sing the praises of everybody that we've worked with, along the way. We have had nothing but great interactions with, city and state officials, and in all, and honestly, nationally too, and in all parts of our kind of permitting process. I think that people want to make this stuff possible, but as we know, sometimes it's just, in the actual doing of it, it can be complicated. But we've had a really good experience. So some of those laws got changed in 2016 at the state level. They reduced the fees for, to exist as a small distillery. They made it possible to have a little bit more of a business as a tasting room, which is very helpful, especially if you're like us making whiskey and you have to wait many years for the whiskey to mature. It's really nice to be able to have a tasting room open in the meantime, where you can serve cocktails and limited bottle sales and things like that. So yeah, where now I'm trying to remember what what the initial question was, because I fear I've only answered part of it.
No, that's okay. The 5 years.
Now I remember. So the first year was Dan and I were just kind of beginning our business plan, talking about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to approach this project. When really, there's a lot, even though Providence didn't have a distillery, there are a lot of craft distilleries in the world. And, we really wanted to make sure that we were bringing our own unique approach to it. I think coming out of an artist community has always been really important to both of us. And also coming out of a community, both from a creative standpoint, and also from an attention to craft standpoint, and, a desire to do things the right way, even if it's the long way. So we talked a lot about, what this company was going to be. We started working with Dan's wife, Annalise, who's an amazing designer, on some of our initial branding. And then we went out and started looking for somebody who could fulfill the CFO type role at the business. I have a business school degree, but I knew that, doing something like this, I really wanted to have a partner who, had had that side of things on lock. That seemed always very obvious that was a necessary piece of the puzzle. And so, I think Dan and I had been working on this for about 2 years, when I got very lucky and reconnected with a former classmate of mine, who was a native Rhode Islander, Doug Randall. He'd moved back to the state. He was running another business at the time. We started having coffee every once in a while, and at some point he made the decision to move on from his current business. He had a very traditional finance background, but was also an entrepreneur who was really excited about making things, and was just the perfect person to join the team. And then Doug and I spent the greater part of the next year, honing our plan and then raising funds. Once we had the funds raised, then we needed to begin construction on our space. We did a total gut renovation of the space that we are currently in. We're right next to the steel yard, and the space had been being used as an artist studio, and so we had to clean everything out. We took the space down to the dirt because we had to put in floor drains for our equipment, and built it all back up again, put in a tasting room. We were also at the same time waiting on the delivery, fabrication and delivery. Delivery actually didn't take very long. It was the fabrication that took a long time, of our main piece of equipment, which is our Vendome still. It's a 500-gallon still from the Vendome Copper and Brass Company in Kentucky. They're sort of very renowned, old school family business. They've been making these things forever. If people haven't seen this thing, I encourage them to come by because it's absolutely beautiful. It's sort of It's a really, really amazing piece of equipment. It took about 10 months for it to get, it was designed completely to our specs. And so it took about 10 months for the whole fabrication process to take place, and then was driven up in like 1 or 2 days from Kentucky by this very nice trucker named Bobby, who drove this thing, through Providence in the back of this, crazy long flat bed, not a flatbread. That would be very weird. And parked it on the street, and we unloaded the whole thing at 6 a.m. the next day. It's pretty wild. Had to put it all together. So anyway, so that was a whole other chunk of time. And then we had some time in, R&D and making sure that we had enough product to open. And then we were ready to grand open. And it was March of 2020. And we did a couple of friends and family events, and then the pandemic happened. So that was surprising to us, as to everybody else.
You had the greatest luck ever.
Well, I mean, truthfully, we actually were quite lucky, because if we had opened, a year before or something, we had just hired our first employee at that point. And if we had opened a year before, we would have had to furlough a ton of people. And, it would have been it would have been very difficult in other ways. We were still kind of small in that we had barely opened. So, we were able to just kind of stay lean. We started, like a lot of other small distilleries, realized very quickly, hey, wait a minute, we make high proof alcohol. It's the main ingredient in hand sanitizer. There is no hand sanitizer. Let's make some. So we, very quickly started producing hand sanitizer from our beautiful organic corn. It was the best smelling hand sanitizer in the entire world.
I was gonna say, I got to use some of it, and I think you were on Late Night with Seth Meyers, where you were featured on it, right?
Yes, we were. That was, and again, it was honestly it was a nice surprise, but not undeserved. But we were one of many, 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 many distilleries across the country who were all doing the same thing. I mean, the industry just really rose to the occasion, and like we did, I think this is a lot of distillery stories. We did a lot of collaboration, so quickly we switched from making the sanitizer from our beautiful organic corn to using, beer from Narragansett that, the bars were closed. They didn't, wasn't going to go anywhere. It would go bad. So we turned that into sanitizer. There was a chemical company, Reed in East Providence, that donated the other chemicals that you need. So it was a real group effort. And, as you're aware, we were giving it away for free from our window. We were supplying the city of Providence for a time. Getting it out to as many first responders as possible and other people in need. So that was an interesting way to start. And then, we segued into the cocktails to go. We started doing a guest bartender program over that first summer where, since all the bars were still closed, we'd have a different guest bartender every week, and people could come and, at least catch a masked faraway glimpse of their favorite bar person as they, passed them a drink with a long stick. So we did that. And then finally around July of last summer, we opened up our patio space, outdoors, very distant, very sort of quote COVID friendly, as much as any place could be. We were very lucky in that it's our outdoor space, because this is an old steel yard. It was a big covered overhang, so we're basically weatherproof, which has continued to be a really a boon for us. So we don't have to shut down when it's raining and things like that.
I was gonna say, so many rainy nights and snowy nights. I would go there because I was especially during the pandemic, because I was like, oh, they're open and I could be outside and not have to worry about COVID things, but the roof. So that actually, I think, made me more aware of your business than anything else, because I was like, oh, it's one of the few places where I could go and actually have a drink outside and not worry about the elements, but I'm still outside. It was this weird in-between.
Right, exactly. That's my current office is on our patio. So I'm talking to you from it right now.
You touched upon a number of things that I want to dig a little bit deeper into each one, and just be mindful of your time and respectful of your time. One thing is, I know you're talking about the legalities of spirits and laws on the books as far as your distillery and things like that. What are, just if you want to touch upon them a little bit, it's more of a two-part question, I guess. What are some of the legalities of spirits that people, maybe the general public, doesn't know about? And I think there's a spirit you had called Kismet And I was wondering why it was called Kismet, and it seemed to be because, correct me if I'm wrong, you couldn't call it whiskey or something to that effect because of the way it was made. So there's laws affecting that, and then there's laws affecting how much you could serve, like a tap room versus a distillery versus a bar. And I noticed like Sons of Liberty had rules like that. They can only serve so many drinks. So what are some of those legal hurdles that you have to consider when opening a distillery and then serving directly to the public? And then there's also, I think, the legality of distribution, which is a whole other thing, because I've noticed that you're not just selling out of your space, but then I've seen your vodka and gin at like bottles. So just to get on the trucks to be distributed at a liquor store is a whole other thing. And then being in bars, those are all legal hurdles that you had to go through. If you could just take a minute or two, how do you manage all of that? Like, how much of a learning curve was that part of the business? And also, how does that affect your bottom line in terms of like budgeting and dollars? And especially if it takes X amount of time to get everything running, you have to have upfront capital to get everything running. And then once you have everything running, you have to handle all these legalities and systems and do the books that way. And then you have to run the space and run your bar and do all these different things.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting on something that's kind of a core challenge to, and there's lots of different ways that you can start a distilling business. Like our model's not the only model, but doing this model with the tasting room, it has pluses and minuses. To us, it was the clear way to do it. But it's sort of funny because you are running at least two very distinct businesses at the same time. And, that one is, we're a manufacturer. That is how we are, legally we're a manufacturer. And so we're running a production business that is, somebody described it to me recently, and they said like a distillery is a barge, when that resonated so much. It's like, it's really, when you're making everything from scratch, like we are, it's slow. Like even just making our vodka, the process takes us close to 2 months by the time, you think, oh, vodka comes off the still, you put it in the bottle and bye-bye. It's actually not so fast. We have to do multiple runs to get enough low wine, we call them low wines, the lower proof alcohol to be able to do a high proof spirit run. And then, we have to add our water very slowly over a period of time. There's lots of sort of steps in between on all of these things that I think people don't tend to think about. So, that side of things is quite slow. Whereas the tasting room side of things, it's a service business and, it's customer facing and it's fast paced and there's always something happening. And we've been having a lot of fun with all the events and pop-ups that we've been doing. But so there's always a lot happening there. And then in addition to all that, as you alluded to, there's also the distribution side of things. We work with a distributor in the state of Rhode Island called Horizon. And they help us with the process of getting into the liquor stores and the bars and restaurants. And that is something that we are spending more and more of our energies on as we're able to kind of, all right, the tasting room is sort of, doing its thing. And now it's time for us to really focus about how to take this experience that we're creating here and get it out to more and more places in Rhode Island and beyond. Did I answer your question?
You definitely did.
I answered part of it, but then in terms of the legality, so there are a few things, especially tasting room side, that I can call out. So, we're allowed to sell a bottle of spirit per day, no more per person from our tasting room. Every cocktail that we serve here, we're not allowed to source. If we didn't make the alcohol, we cannot serve it. So you'll notice we don't have any beer or wine. That's not because we hate beer and wine. It's because we can't, under our license, do that. And when we're making a cocktail that uses a vermouth or a Campari, we need to create that vermouth or Campari here ourselves. Happily, we have two former chefs that have helped to get our tasting room up and running.
I did not realize that part. That's interesting. Not to interrupt, but I did not realize that part.
It's actually quite cool because the same way that we paid so much attention to the way that we were sourcing, which I can tell you a little bit more about as well. on the production side and like the handcrafted nature of everything that we do there, we mirror that exactly on the tasting room side of things. And, unfortunately, we still haven't opened up the inside of our tasting room fully. We probably will in the fall. No promises, but, most likely. But the whole interior there, we carried the same themes through. It's, many things fabricated by our local arts community here, works of art by local artists hanging on the walls, crazy installation in our bathroom. We wanted everything in there to contribute to this sense of place and experience that we wanted to create.
So I definitely want to talk about the production side a little bit further, but since you were mentioning the tasting room in your space, I do have a question. I think it may seem like an odd question to anyone listening, depending on what time that they listen to this episode. Why Sims Avenue? Because I think people think like right now, oh, there's you guys are there, and then there's the Steel Yard, and then there's the Farm Fresh, I believe Farm Fresh RI and Revival, and New Harvest is about to open up, and there's another brewery, Providence Brewing Company. I'm assuming at the time that you picked Sims Ave, all this didn't exist. So what led into the decision of hey, Sims Ave, that's where we're going to be. If you want to touch upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like a little bit of like an old timer. I've been involved in stuff on this block for probably about 20 years at this point. So my husband was one of the co-founders of the Steel Yard and helped develop the Manahasset Mill, where we lived for a very long time. And that's all right on this block as well. And you'll forgive me if there's the farmer who collects our spent grain to take and feed to his pigs and cows is arriving on site right now. If you hear the beeping of a truck backing up. So anyway, we've been doing stuff in this neighborhood for a really, really, really long time. And I just would, so it was no question for me. And, Dan also has been involved in this community for a similarly long time. There's no question about where to do this. We've always wanted to have a gathering space that was sort of food and beverage based. So that aspect of having the tasting room here made a lot of sense for us. Again, this is the Valley neighborhood. It's Providence's industrial history. This is a place that things have always been made. So the idea of continuing to make things here, although sort of a new twist on it, that seemed to just make a lot of sense. These buildings feel good. You come to our space, it feels good. It's got something about it. So we really wanted to be able to be here, and just couldn't be more excited about all the other amazing things that are going on. We love our neighbors. We've had an amazing collaboration with the Garden of Eve, it's a Caribbean restaurant around the corner. From the very beginning. I'm so excited that Revival is here and all of the other breweries that are coming online. And of course, Tallulah's and New Harvest and all the other ones that you called out. And Farm Fresh, of course, is amazing. We love having the weekend markets and the flea and all that. So it's just, we are in such we're just so excited for more and more people to get to discover this neighborhood and have it be more and more activated. And of course, I shouldn't forget Waterfire across the street. They're doing all kinds of amazing things. Someday we may be able to walk across the river directly, like right at the end of Sims Ave. There's a pedestrian footbridge that the city's been working on opening up at some point. So that'll be really cool because it'll just give us kind of more access. But yeah, we've all been just really excited to see the energy that's here these days.
So we will get to the production, I promise, because I definitely want to ask about that. But since we're on the subject of the space, one thing I noticed about your space, because you're saying, hey, it feels really good to be in there, and I want to touch upon that because I've noticed this with both like brewery like tap rooms and even to call on another distiller, Sons of Liberty. I remember when they first opened, it just felt like this distilling room and like a small tasting room, but it was kind of bare bones. And then later on, they built it up. Your space, the space, even the distilling equipment, the bar that nobody can go into right now, still looks beautiful. The bathroom, which I'm not even going to talk about what's in there because that's an experience. I don't want to do a spoiler alert. If you're listening right now, just go experience it. The outside space, all that. Do you think that that's becoming more and more of a trend or thing? And why do you maybe think that is for the industry and for yourself? Like, we can't just have. Here's our tap room. It needs to be thought out. It needs to have like a sense of feeling and design. So why do you think that is for yourself and, for the industry at large? And then secondly, art definitely influences, it looks like, your entire organization. Even the bottles just look amazing. Like, I looked at them the first time. I was like, wow, this is really thought out. These look really beautiful. The merch, everything is so thoughtfully designed. So is there more of a focus on creating a space when you're a brewer or a distiller now? And why do you think that is for you in the industry? And also, how and why is art influencing everything you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just say that Sons of Liberty is amazing. Mike Rapucci is an incredible human who's extremely generous and helpful with, just encouragement and expertise and just, think that they're awesome. Love everything they do. Great spirits. But anyway, so, you mentioned them, so it made me think of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can speak to what's happening in the industry at large. We're so busy. I don't get out as much as I should, and also pandemic. So I'd say the last year I haven't been, to as many new distilleries as I would like to. I can't necessarily speak to what other people are doing, but I can just say for us that, this was always we named our first two products structural vodka and ornamental gin because structural and ornamental steel were the two types of steel that were fabricated on the site when it was a functioning steel yard for over 100 years. So it was a nice nod to the past. But we also did it because we felt like it encapsulated very nicely the way that we wanted to approach spirits and something that we thought we could bring our unique take to as artists. And so, the structural piece is the piece I've been referring to about everything being well made, well crafted, like do it the long way if it's the best way, take your time and make sure everything is just right. And then the ornamental piece is the art piece. It's the for beauty piece. It's the aesthetically pleasing piece, the community piece. Like, we don't have to drink spirits, but we're doing it because it's this joyful thing. And we really wanted to approach the whole company with that sense of joy and wonder and of coming together with others to make something really special. And, I've said this a bunch recently, but I've just realized personally for myself, I am at my most fulfilled and content when I am engaged with others making a thing and making a beautiful thing. And Providence has provided for me over the course of my time here many, many opportunities to do that with all kinds of really incredible people. And I just keep meeting new ones every day. It's that, anyway, so that sense of collaboration is so exciting. So this space is, a result of that. It's a result of a lot of, creative and interesting human beings coming together and making a thing. I'm grateful for it, certainly, and it's nice to hear that. Sounds like that some of it's getting across. So
no, it definitely is. We were just talking about the external, the design, the merch, the space. Now we're going into the spirits themselves. For one, I haven't had a bad drink at all. Every spirit your organization has put out, every cocktail I've had has been awesome. So thank you. And one of the few gins I've ever had that I could just drink straight. It's not the norm for gin. Anybody who's had gin knows if you can drink the gin straight, you're doing something right. So quick question on that, and dive as deep as you want. From the research I did, I can tell that you're very proud about your production process. First off, what are neutrals and why don't you use them? And the second half of that, what makes your production process unique? Because it seems to be a very, I don't know if I'm using the right lingo, or the right term. It's very tip to tail. Everything is considered. So yeah, why don't you use neutrals and your production process? Why is it unique? What do you take into consideration?
Sure. So yeah, exactly. We try to be very thoughtful with how we approach things there. So first of all, neutral spirit, also known as GNS or NGS or neutral grain spirit, many names, is basically it's the very very high proof, very strong alcohol that is the base for all vodkas and gins. And many distilleries, when they're starting up, I mean, it's as we say, it's quite a commitment to make it from scratch. You can very easily purchase it from some perfectly excellent facilities in the Midwest. They are very large. They produce very consistent product. You can get it organic. You can get it however you want it. It comes out of a big factory, and many small distilleries start off, or just in general, use that as the base for their products. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. In fact, London Dry gins, technically, when they're made in the UK, you have to actually start. You're not allowed to make the spirit yourself. So there's no value judgment whatsoever. It just wasn't what we wanted to do. As I've mentioned, we wanted to be able to control how, our sourcing exactly. We wanted to know that we wanted to visit the farm that the grain was coming from and have a relationship. And I don't think you can quite do when you're sourcing it from a giant company. So we source all of the corn for our vodka and gin from the Stonehouse Farm. It is a couple hours drive away in New York State. Rhode Island is not, unfortunately, we don't have enough land. This sort of comes as no surprise, but we don't have enough land here to grow the scale of grain that we would need to produce our spirit. So it was either going to be Western Mass or New York State. We chose New York State. The farm that we source everything from is really amazing. They are organic and working on their biodynamic certification. They also do an enormous amount of soil health research, going kind of deeper into the soil than other places have, trying to measure the amount of carbon that they sequester through their processes. And they actually, what they've discovered through some of this research is that they actually put more carbon back into the soil than they use. So, that is a pretty awesome thing that we're really excited to be able to support. It's a beautiful product. So wait, and then what was the other part of the question? Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Oh no, no worries. It's what are neutral spirits and why don't you use them? Which you definitely answered. And then just what's different about your production process and this idea of knowing where everything comes from, like an end to end, from the start to the end. You take everything into consideration, and I think it's pretty unique, for your business.
Yes, we do. Exactly. And then, I'd say that the place we're also working with, I'd say the process that we follow for making our vodka it's an old school process for how you would create this if you're working with, grain that comes in. There's nothing too crazy there, but there's a place that we're really trying to push the innovation is with some of our other products that we're using. For instance, our Blue Velvet bourbon, we use two really interesting types of blue corn. One is an organic strain from Kentucky, and the other one is a landrace strain of blue that's from Mexico. And landrace means that the corn is literally unchanged from its wild genetic ancestor. It's farmed in the exact same way as it has been for many generations. It's a collective of small family farmers, and the way we came to that project was that we knew somebody who was involved with a tortilla company. They made masa that's what you make tortillas out of for chefs. And they had this incredible blue corn from Mexico, and they wanted to know how it would taste as a bourbon. And we said, we would love to help you find out. So we were testing it with the other blue corn to see how they compared. And we made a happy discovery that the two of them blended and put in a barrel for 6 months was incredibly delicious. So we released it as our Blue Velvet. We're also about to be doing some experiments with a grain called Kernza. It's developed by the Land Institute in Salina, Kansas. They're an organization that's been around for I think 30 years, or maybe longer. They've been working on this grain certainly that long. and it's a perennial wheat, which is really cool because basically imagine that instead of, if you're sowing a seed every year, you have to harvest the seed, dry the seed, and then go back to your fields, and you might need to till your fields, and you might need to deal with weeds, whether chemically or not, and it's a whole process. There's inevitably runoff from the soil and things like that. It takes a lot of inputs. However, if if you have a tree that bears fruit every year, you don't have to go in every year and dig up the tree. It just keeps producing fruit. And so this is a type of grain that basically does that. You don't have to go dig it up every year. So it's really a pretty revolutionary concept. And we're going to be doing some experiments with that in the upcoming months, working with the Land Institute, which has been a real pleasure so far. So we have some fun things there and lots of other little experiments in the works. But we're excited about exploring different types of grains and some other. We actually did a really fun experiment yesterday that had to do with some very different inputs, not on the grain front, but I can't talk about it yet because it's still in R&D. So we're going to have to just be patient. I realized I didn't talk about Kismet. Do you want me to talk about Kismet? Because I can if you'd like, or we can save it.
I would say save it only because there's only. I want to be respectful of your time, and we only have so much time left. Because I got two more questions, and here's one of them. One being that I really definitely want to ask this because you've actually been mentioning it. It seems like all throughout the episode, and it's something I want to touch upon. Actually, the Kismet is a result of the collaboration between you guys and Narragansett, I believe. And then also, you're collaborating in a sense with Garden of Eden as far as food. And then you have the food trucks, you have your neighbors that you work with. And even with the farmers you work with, it's this sense of collaboration if you think about it. So my question is, this focus you have on collaboration, some businesses keep things close to the chest. And it seems like your business is really focused on collaboration and working with others. Was that by design from the beginning, or was that something that organically grew along with the way of this journey of building your company up?
I would say both, definitely both. I mean, some of it's just you do it because everybody has a common goal, and it's helpful to everybody to do. But from where I'm coming from, as I mentioned before, I'm sort of at my happiest when playing with others. So, I think one of the things that's really great about being in Rhode Island and in Providence is that we're small. It's pretty easy to, it only takes a couple of leaps to figure out who you need to talk to about something. And I think that in itself can lead to a lot of really amazing collaborations and a lot of really great relationships that can stand the test of time. So I feel like here at ISCO, we're forging those relationships with people every day. And we're excited to just keep doing more of the same.
That's awesome. And actually, this is really the last question. And then right after that last question, the tradition is on the show that you can, the floor is yours. You can talk about whatever you want and promote whatever you want and shout out whoever you want, whatever you want. So once we do this last question, go nuts, live mic, do whatever you want. But the last question is, from making the hand sanitizer for the pandemic, being able to utilize your outdoor space because of the roof, it seems like even with all the thought and consideration that goes into everything, from the process of making your spirits to even the space itself, it seems like you're pretty nimble. And it's a two-part question, and then you can go into whatever you want. Being nimble, is that by design, and has that helped you with growing the business? And then, with that being said, what are some of your future plans, for growth? What are some of the goals that your business is going to try to reach in the future?
Sure. So, I would just say that if you're not nimble, then you're not going to be a very good entrepreneur. I mean, it's just running your own business is a constant exercise in like everything going wrong all of the time. And I mean that in the best. I mean, it's just, every moment it presents many challenges. And so, you if you are not okay with that type of an existence, if that's not like exciting to you and you're like, ooh, this is an interesting one, how are we going to solve this, let's figure it out, then I think maybe you should work for somebody else. So I think some of that is just inherent. And then in terms of future plans, I'd say that this year, we're going to keep doing a lot. We have a great summer planned on the patio. We have live music every Wednesday night. We have a rotating series of amazing DJs on Thursdays and food pop-ups on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. The whole summer's booked. So, people should definitely check in on, our website or our Instagram at School Spirits to see what we're up to and come by and come hang out with us. So we're really excited about that. We have some, like I said, some fun new things in R&D, but, again, we're a barge, so it might take us a little while to have them, ready for consumers. Our whiskey is aging. We don't like to put timelines on when it's going to be ready because it's a process that we really have to follow the process. But, at some point we are going to have quite a bit of whiskey and we're excited about that. Now there's a car alarm going off. I don't know if you can hear that. It's just very, very busy today. So we're super excited about things on the patio, in the tasting room. And, I'd say that a big focus for this year is to really get out there more on the bar and restaurant side and on the liquor store side of things. Again, we've spent focused a lot of our energies on and this was always our plan, make our experience here everything that we want it to be, and then let's start to get that out to more places and more people. And so that's really going to be a huge focus for this year. So anybody listening, please ask for us at your local liquor store if we're not there already, and tell your favorite bartender about us if they don't already know. We don't want to be Providence's best kept secret for too long. So that's going to be a big focus for the coming months.
Well, last part of the show, as is tradition, you shout out whoever you want, talk about whatever you want, promote whatever you want. The floor is yours to end it on. So live mic, you could say whatever you like. Go for it.
I wish I had like a sports team to go somebody, but I don't. Sorry, I'm probably offending people with sports teams. But honestly, the sports team, the team here is amazing. I come to work every day and I'm just so grateful to get to work with this incredible group of humans. We're actually hiring. So if anybody knows, we're looking for another part-time bartender. So if anyone wants to join this awesome team, DM us on Instagram. But yeah, I just shout out, team here, all the amazing people who come and do the pop-ups with us. It's so fun to do those. Check out our schedule on our website, which really has the sort of full listing of everything coming up. Shout out to Rhode Island. Why
not? And that's it for this episode of the Creative Capital Show. Thanks for listening. And a special thanks goes to this episode's guest, Manya Rubinstein. The Creative Capital Show is hosted, recorded, edited, mixed, and produced by me, Jason Sylvia. You can listen to the Creative Capital Show over at our website, creativecapitalshow.com. We're also available on Anchor FM, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all other major podcast hosting platforms. If you like the show, please subscribe. Helps the show out a lot. And be sure to follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the show, and until next time, keep on creating.